Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Bob Menendez. Senator, thanks for joining us. What's your reaction to the sanctions President Biden announced today? Are these measures, from your perspective, strong enough to deter Putin from escalating this crisis?
Well, they give Putin, should give Putin a lot of cause to deter from ultimately escalating. Look, I mean, when you take one of the largest banks in Russia and you do blocking sanctions, which are the most severe sanctions you can do, when you take Russia's sovereign debt, which means it won't be able to borrow in the West, and you sanction that, when you take the military bank that operates and does the financing for military operations of Russia, and you sanction that. And when I look at the 5 oligarchs that have been sanctioned, who are they? The director of the Federal Security Service, the president of that state-owned, the deputy president of that state-owned bank, BTB, the deputy staff of the president of Russia, the CEO of their most significant top social media platform, and others. You're now finally going after the oligarchs that hold Putin's money and help him do what he does. And for them, these are serious consequences as well. So
and it's not just, let me interrupt, it's not just the oligarchs, it's their families as well. And that could be very, very significant. As you know, President Biden called Putin's moves, and I'm quoting President Biden right now, the beginning of an invasion. Does the U.S. have clear evidence that Russian troops have moved across Ukraine's border into eastern Ukraine?
Well, I don't have access to that information. I'm back in New Jersey, so I have not had classified information. But from all of the accounts that I draw from our NATO headquarters, it certainly seems that there's elements of the Russian troops that have moved into eastern Ukraine. And let's not forget, they have had what they call irregular forces there, people who may not have the Russian patch on their shoulder, but they're Russian soldiers. I think that that whole suggestion that whether they have or they haven't, it seems to me that an invasion's an invasion. They have clearly created an invasion into Ukraine, and that's why you see the EU reacting as it is as well.
Yeah, it's clearly an invasion. The president also warned, and I'm quoting President Biden now, Russia is poised to go much further in launching a massive military attack against Ukraine. What are you bracing for in the coming hours and days, Senator?
Well, I would not think in the 21st century that we would be talking about the aggression of one country against another, trying to change the map of Europe, trying to change the sovereignty of the nation by force, as Putin is trying to do. But I am concerned that aggression goes further than the, Donbass region, the eastern region that's borders Russia. I'm concerned that they will go more into the heartland of Ukraine. They have, well over 150, maybe 190,000 troops. They have 500 airplanes. They have all types they have submarines. They have everything surrounding this nation. You don't do that in order to achieve diplomacy. You do that either to strangle the country, bring it to its knees, or you do it to invade it. In either case, there have to be continuing severe consequences for what Putin is doing.
Yeah, Putin yesterday said in that lengthy speech, Ukraine basically has no right to exist. It's part of Russia. He was very blunt in saying that. Senator Menendez, we'll continue this conversation.
That's a perversion of history.
It certainly is.
That's a perversion of history, for sure. Kiev existed a couple hundred years before Moscow ever did.
Yeah, good point. Senator Menendez, thanks for joining us.